My name's Abiola Rufai-Awojide, and I am with Chris Gordon on Hellblazer Biz.
My name's Abraham Adeyemi, and I am with Chris Gordon on Hellblazer Biz.
Everyone, I have the honour and the privilege of the company today, as you've heard from Abraham and Abiola, about their new short film, No More Wings. So yeah, I'm really privileged. I've seen the film, and it's a great little short, very powerful. So I'm really honoured to be in your company, both of you. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks,
Chris. Thanks for having us, and thanks for the kind words. Appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. So yeah, I mean, basically, obviously, this would have a little chat, find out about yourselves and what you're planning to do, where you come from with your filmmaking and things like that, and we'll hopefully have a nice little conversation, and then I can let you go back to your Friday evening.
Wonderful, let's do it.
Cool. So I mean, when did you realise? I think you had this artistic streak within you, because it is a very artistic streak that you've got this, to create something like this.
My artistic streak. I don't know when I realised I had it. I think the one thing I realised much earlier, rather than the artistic streak, was my ability to write, my ability to use words, and I would say just using words, not even necessarily telling stories. And that's something that stems back to probably school, in terms of I've always enjoyed writing, whether it be essays, whether it be letters. Very, very nerdy when it came to words, and it was something I took a lot of pride in. And it was probably much later when the storytelling element came into play, when a number of people used to, a lot of people used to speak about how well I could write, which I couldn't personally see, especially with the kind of school I went to. You just think everyone knows how to write.
Yeah.
But people also used to mention my storytelling ability, which is quite funny, because now I probably frustrate my friends with my storytelling, in terms of if we're on the phone, or if I want to tell you something, you can never get the one sentence version. There's, as Addy can attest, it's always paragraphs. And some of my friends are really good at it. They're like, okay, Abe, say it in 2 minutes. As in, they'll just put that in the beginning, and then I have to figure it out, which in itself probably helps me with my storytelling. So yeah, I don't know necessarily about the artistic streak, but I think maybe around 20 was when I thought, okay, maybe everyone is right about me being, or was it 20? Probably 19, that everyone was right about me being able to write and tell stories. And I thought, well, it's something I've always enjoyed, so maybe I should try it out and see what happens.
Excellent. I know what you mean about embellishing your story and your storytelling when you're talking to your friends, because I'm the same. It's like, well, I'm good at
details are important.
I enjoy talking. Yeah, exactly. They are. Yeah, because my friends will just sit there, my family, I'll start talking. They'll just like, "Oh, Chris, please shut up." Just like get to the point. Yeah, like half an hour later, I'm still But you're right. They are. The detail of everything is important, and obviously in this line of work that you've got, it is very important, because you're trying to, you're pushing across a story and that tale. So how? Something, a different question aside, is when it comes to a short film, how do you find when you talk your storytelling so much? How can you find writing something that's got to be, the whole thing has got to be rounded and put into something like that, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes long? How hard is that? Hard, or is that an easy thing for you to?
I think, do you know what? I wouldn't say that I think of it as difficult, and it could be perhaps because I approach short films in a different way to what I think a lot of filmmakers do. When I'm not the person who writes a short film that was meant to be a feature film or was meant to be a TV script, and then I was doing it in a smaller way, which we could do in a reasonable budget and things like that. I always write anything with the intentions of it being what it's supposed to be. So if it's a play, I write a play. If I write a short film, a short play, a feature-length film, a TV script, I always write it for what it's meant to be, and it's meant to be a complete story. I grew up enjoying reading books just as much as, in terms of novels, just as much as I grew up enjoying short stories. And I don't tend to feel like, oh, I wish that was smaller, or I wish that was bigger, or it could only need that. So I think that's maybe the approach that I take, which has worked for me, just treating it as what it's meant to be, and looking at the story Yeah, just like a full-length story, a
Hmm.
short story has the same thing, which is a beginning, a middle, and an end, and people who want things, and it it occurs in the space of 10 minutes rather than in 90.
Okay. Excellent. It's nice to hear because I say obviously people I talk to they've either got features or shorts, and I'm always fascinated because I love the short films. I just think are so great in the fact that you can tell an entire story and you can win someone completely over in the same amount of time in 10 minutes that you can in an hour and a half. You know, feature length. The power of it can come right across. I actually think this might completely see we go storytelling. When I've been talking to people before, I think one of the things with film shorts we should do. And I know you, Abby, you work with BFI Network, so maybe you can help. You can push that kind of thing in cinemas. But you get all the trailers before cinemas. What I think
Yeah.
the British cinemas should do, and American ones, obviously, is push rather than have all these adverts and stuff like that. Is at the beginning of a film, like they used to, is have as a short film, an independent short film, like No More Wings, and show that at the beginning of a feature film, so that people can you get that exposure, and then obviously every cinema can do it, or you can have one night a week where it's just like an evening of short films in like the cinema or whatever they're called. I can't remember the name of the cinemas now. It's been that long since I've been to one because I've been locked down. Cineworld, something like that. Just have that's what I think they deserve to have that such a wide audience as well. So I thought that'd be quite a good thing maybe. And then help more people get to see it in that respect.
That's
Yeah,
something that people, sorry, but it's something I've heard quite a few people speak about as well. I work for the Independent Cinema Office as well, and they look after a lot of cinemas in the southeast area, and it's something I know that they've discussed in the past. You might be onto something.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, excellent. I'll have to keep pushing it to my independent one up here then. I think it's great to push it out. So what kind of inspirations have you had in filmmaking to, as you've gone along, what kind of directors or filmmakers have given you that, if there are any? Obviously, you're your own person, so.
no, there's been a number of filmmakers that have inspired me. The first few that always come to mind are John Singleton, Woody Allen, Quentin Tarantino. No, I guess he's a filmmaker, the person I'm about to say, Aaron Sorkin, but I think of him more as a writer rather than a writer. Like my first thing when I think of Sorkin, I think writer. Yeah. But I think all of those people in different ways have really inspired my work. I think David O. Russell as well as someone whose work I absolutely love. More recently, actually, I was watching just this weekend gone Steve McQueen's the first of his 5 films, Mangrove, as part of his Small Axe series, and I was just blown away. As someone who probably doesn't love 12 Years a Slave as much as everyone else does, but loves all of his other work. Like I love, Shame is my favorite Steve McQueen film. Watching Mangrove last week, I was just like, my goodness, this man is incredible. Like the talent is mind-blowing. Scorsese as well. There's numbers of them, and it's weird because I tend not to think of the filmmakers as such, and more that I just think of the films that really touched me and impacted the way I wanted to tell stories and the way those things made me feel, and then wanting to have that impact on an audience is the place where I kind of start from.
Okay, some really good names as well that you brought out there, and I do agree. With the talent there as well. I mean, Aaron Sorkin used to The West Wing, that one, just to make sure that was correct, wasn't he? Yeah. That's phenomenal program I've ever watched.
Yeah. My favorite thing he did was The Newsroom, about a decade ago now, which I thought was magnificent. And I think the link between all of those writers, which I've referenced, apart from probably Steve McQueen, ironically, is that they all write such incredible dialogue. And even though their works are very, very different, and even their dialogue is very different, but there's such a strength of dialogue in their writing that's so impactful and visceral. And that's why I would select those people. It's less about, although all of them also have incredible visual language and visual storytelling, it's definitely the dialogue that sticks with me and that's what I pay attention to when a film connects with me.
Excellent. Yeah, well, it is because that's what draws you in. That's what makes you empathise with the characters and stuff. Very much so. And Tarantino, I'm not going to mention as someone who's worked. Who did he work with? He was actually worked with on Django Unchained with Tarantino. He was one of the in one of the rooms at the time, and he said, and he was just the guy came on, and he was like, 8 o'clock in the morning, they were all just sitting having their breakfast. He was, come on guys, we're going to make a film today. And he was like, that's the kind of, that's what every day he'd come in. He goes, come on, motivate yourselves. We're making a film or a movie, as it was. But yeah, he's just yeah, you're right. The various films that he's done, it is very much the dialogue. It's very central in everything. You look at Django Unchained, you look at Inglourious. I can swear on this show, it's fine. Inglourious Bastards in that respect. That's one of my favourites of all time because of the way it twisted things. But yeah, it's very clever use of dialogue, and I can see that where you can sort of get inspiration from in that respect. Cool. So I lost my train of thought then.
It's all good.
So, with the film industry as a whole, how's it been trying to getting yourself in to start with there? Obviously, you've got Abby there as well, helping. You guys have worked together quite a long time as well, from what I believe. So, how have you found getting into the film industry itself? It's quite
Abby, I'll let you answer
area.
first.
Sorry?
Yeah. No, I said I'd let Abby answer first, but yeah, it is difficult.
Yeah, I guess I've pretty much stumbled my way through up until this point, to be honest with you. I didn't have, like a lot of people, didn't have any ties at all. I wouldn't even say I sort of started off knowing what area I wanted to work in film. So I had to do a lot of figuring it out and just trying things and making things and creating. Yeah, it has been difficult, to be honest. I think because it's not necessarily an industry that is set up, I'd say, for people like me. But then I think also part of the challenge and part of being a great filmmaker is figuring all of that out, and working your way through it and finding where you fit, and then doing a great job when you get there. So I wouldn't say it's easy. It's always learnings. Everything we do, there's sort of like a bunch of learning that comes with it, but it's also part of the excitement of it, dare I say it, and the challenge. So yeah,
I'd add to that. I think whereas for Abby there was that perception that it wasn't really an industry that was set up for people like us, I think for me, I probably entered it with a lot of naivety, which is probably the story of my life, is that I'm kind of really, I'd say I'm quite headstrong. And so I decide I want to do something and therefore I pursue it. And I don't consider that there might be factors that are beyond my control, or there might be an infrastructure or a history that's existed, which means that this thing is going to be infinitely more difficult for me than it might be for other people. I just think, well, this is what I want to do. I'm going to get there. I'm going to figure it out. And that by no means didn't necessarily make it easier, but it probably made it easier mentally, in that I was never worrying about, or I say never, at some point I'm sure I did, but at least in the early stages when I made the decision, this is what I wanted to do, I would just be like, okay, so what's the first step I need to do? What's the second step I need to do? What's the third step I need to do? Never thinking that, oh, this step might have taken me longer for any reason, just thinking, got to do that. So I just kind of figured it out, similarly like Abby, figured it out along the way, but also a lot of checking in with myself. Like for me, if we did or made anything and it didn't yield the result that I wanted it to, it's asking that question, okay, well, we did that thing to the best of our ability, so there's nothing we could have done better to make that work. But what could we have done? Now that we know that, what's the next step? Because the next step might look differently now that we know that that thing didn't work exactly as it was meant to, or meant to open up a certain kind of door for us. So it's been a lot of that. It's been a lot of hustling. It's been a lot of trying to just figure out innovative ways to get the attention of the right people, get the right support to be able to make work. But also it's spending a lot of time, at least from a writer's perspective, spending a lot of time independently, just writing away with no promises, no hope, no anything, just you and your laptop and your scripts, and that's all you've got, and you come out of the other end of that process and you hope that someone will pay attention. And whilst I think even recently I've been having conversations about a script I wrote about 8 years ago, and that's I don't know how many scripts I've written since then, but it's clearly all part of the process, and at some point it's useful, whether it be because of the kind of conversations I'm having, or equally just because of the actual act and process of writing and learning how to write and learning how to tell stories and put your stories onto a script and create a world and whatnot.
Yeah, I love how self-aware you are, Abe. I feel that that was such an accurate description of Abe, and also what I was in terms of like his clarity around when he wants to do something. He's like, he reminds me of like, you know, like when you have a child that doesn't necessarily have any sort of fear and will jump off the sofa with all the feet that are going to land on their feet. That is Abe, and I think that's why I enjoy working with him, and it keeps me on my toes and it challenges me, because Abe doesn't take no for an answer, and that is absolutely not the limit, which is great. So yeah.
Well, that's the attitude to have, especially like in this industry as well, because you know there you know, you're not gonna lie, there's a certain demographic who seem to run this industry, in the film industry, but it's changing a lot now, and so guys like you can push yourselves and get yourselves you know, much more recognized out there, which is the talent is there. And one thing, I mean, I actually pushed as well, because sorry, another story, a little sideline. It was recently on Facebook.
Okay.
I'd say, especially when you're talking about writing as well, because you know I've only watched one of your short films, and I can see the talent and the you know, the way you write is very, very well done. And I pushed. I think it's Short Circuit 2. I think, you know, Short Circuit was being remade. And I went on a rant on Facebook, as I'm well known. If you ever know me on Facebook, I'll have a little rant now and then. Well, I ranted on this one and just said why they, you know, obviously as yet another one they want to remake, big Hollywood star, blah blah blah. And I was just like, just why don't they stop? I said, because you've got absolutely loads of people like yourselves who are talented writers out there. Why don't they give you guys a good chance? You know, give you the big, you know, the budgets and the money, and produce, you know, and push you through. And rather than rehashing old stuff, I know why they're rehashing it. It's because they know it's going to make them money, blah, blah, blah. But they should take the risk. It's not that as much of a risk. They should just take that extra step and just, you know, enhance and give people new stories, because you guys are writing so much. And you've got all this, you know, you've got all, like you say, you've got all these scripts ready and going. And we should be nurturing and pushing that much more in the way we go.
You know what? I think it's really, really difficult. And I was having a conversation with some friends recently about, we were talking about books and authors, but it's the same concept and ideas that I put in that conversation are very much applicable to, you know, any entertainment industry. And, you know, when you have a book by, you know, let's say a book by a celebrity like an A-lister, which is going to be on the bestsellers list and all of those things, guaranteed, whether it's amazing or it's garbage. You know, the reality is that it's a necessary evil in that without that guaranteed bestseller, you don't have the writers who are going to maybe only sell 100 or 200 books given the opportunity, because the companies can't afford to take the risk unless they're having those ones which they know they can bank on them to make the millions. And it's really frustrating, because by no means do I want to be excusing or defending these companies, because equally there are times when you just be like, come on guys, like, are you kidding me? And you know, there's so many different layers to the argument, whether it be that even when they're trying to address an issue, whether it be race inequality of opportunities, whether it be gender inequality of opportunities, whether it be regional inequality of opportunities, like, you know, opportunities are obviously concentrated to London. There's no denying that. And but then the flip side of what becomes frustrating as well is when they tackle that and one person is given 10 opportunities, and it's like, you know, that's kind of their box ticking quotes of, okay, well, this person, we've given this person this opportunity, and on the surface it looks like a victory for whatever minority that might be, whether it be race, whether it be gender, whether it be regional, whatever it is, but it doesn't change, you know. And also, actually, what's sad is that so often that when it is framed in that way, it tends to be actually that same person is in some shape or form actually the person who was already, I guess, high profile enough. And so I think it's really difficult. And personally, I try not to think about it too much, but what I know certainly I'm not doing is relying on a previous generation to make those changes for me. And I say that because, you know, it's nice if they are able to check their privilege and to observe that, oh, you know, this is what we can do. But the reality is a lot of people find it difficult, especially if it's not habitual. And, you know, I think at least what I really enjoy within my generation is that even, you know, if the stars are the goal, many of us are still in the concrete, right on the ground. And despite that, we're still already in that mindset of like, right, what can I do to do this? What can I do to do that? Like, there's so many opportunity I've received from my peers who are on the same level as me, which has resulted in me going up a step or me getting an opportunity in a way that, you know, it's amazing, and it makes you question, wow, why did those people not do it for us who are way above us, who could have done it, who had more clout, who had more power, who had more potential and connections and all of those things to do it. But I just think that maybe they don't have the mentality to do that. And that's, you know, that's quite a sweeping statement, and it can't, of course, be correct for all, but it's how I feel, you know, maybe, you know, because also it's potentially a sign of their times as well. Like, I know that a lot of people of a couple generations before ours talk about how they realized that they were pit against each other and made to feel like they were each other's competition. So there would be no room for them to be helping other people, whether it be the people in line with them or the people, you know, behind them, because again, those people are competition, and this isn't just within film. This is, yeah, something that is rooted in human nature. That when someone's younger, you just think, oh, that's, you know, firstly, the world gets really excited about them, and you feel under threat. And so, I feel really glad that at least within my generation, that seems to be changing. Even today, I got an email for a writers' room I'm about to do, and in the email it had the list of all the writers that are in the room, and one of them is someone who I know, and it's their first writer's room. And the way she knows this production company is because I emailed her, I was like, hey, there's this writer, I think she's really talented, you should probably have her on your radar. You know, I had no idea what had happened since, and then I see this email and I'm like, oh great, XYZ is going to be in the writer's room. And that's not to toot my horn, it's to say that that's the way it should be. Like, I've not lost out on anything by giving her a pedestal or giving her a platform or giving her an introduction. It hasn't impacted me in any shape or form. And equally, even if I wasn't in that room and she was, it's because she's meant to be in that room and I'm not meant to be part of that project. Not, you know, that's how I look at it. And that's, I feel like I'm speaking on behalf of many of the people I know, in that we do that for each other. Like, that's just who we are. And yeah, there's times when, yeah, I won't even go on anymore. I feel like I've said everything I need to say.
That's great. It's actually really inspiring listening to you, because you are a really good speaker with it as well. But I was going to say, I know that, and that's something I found in the independent, especially in this industry as well. Since, I mean, I'm only a little lowly podcaster, because that's what I do with my interviews and stuff. But when I've gone to, obviously, some of the networking events. I used to live and work in London a couple of years back. So I used to go to networking events down there and get invited to these things. And one thing I did learn, and one thing I've learned through the chats I've had with people who brought out short films and independent films, is that, like you say, that generation, there seems to be an entire ethos to help each other. People, you know, I think the boomer, I'll call it the boomer. I'll say the boomer. My parents are the boomers. I'm Generation X. I'm the one I'm the generation everyone forgets about. So don't remember me. Yeah, the ones above, they're right. They did have that competition against each other. But this whole independent film circuit, they're all looking out for each other. There's so many people out there who will, like you've just said with your colleague in the writer's room, they'll push someone else and they'll push their friend because they think, okay, it might not be good for me, but it'll be good for you. And they'll actually go out and actively do that with each other. And I think that is something that is really strong within with the community that we've got. I can't, you know, I'd say the same in America, but obviously I know for the UK one, definitely, there is that it's like a family and everyone looks out for each other. Most people would look out for each other. So not everyone, but the majority of of people in this industry will look out for each other and help each other along, rather than like vie for competition and things. So basically I just agree with what you said. That's my long term way of saying it.
Thank you.
Good. And obviously you are right. You're blowing your own trumpet because obviously in order to fund No More Wings, you did actually win the global screenwriting competition as well from Soho House.
Yeah, that was not a bad result.
Yeah, so that's obviously that enabled then you to fund No More Wings as well. So moving on to that, finally, I'm sure you can hear me. He's just sitting there going, "Oh, finally!" After all this time, how did you actually come about with the idea for No More Wings? And I believe it's a personal experience or a nostalgic look or something.
Yeah, that's about right. I've born and raised, grown up in South London, and so I've spent a lot of time all as a result of the chicken shop. And yeah, I think the idea came to me a few years ago when I was just reminiscing about the meaning of that place. I was thinking about friends who I grew up with, who we may have been very close when we were young, and now we live totally different lives. And I was wondering, what do those conversations look like when you have people who have grown apart? What comes out of that when they talk? And I just spent time essentially imagining that and just thinking about how amazing those conversations could potentially be when you realize how far you've both come and potentially grown apart, but yet the things which still feel the same, the things which you still both relate to and connect to, which are a part of the fabric of your existence, of your culture, of your humanity, and who you are. Yeah, and so for me as well, it was one of, I think an issue we've definitely had over the years, we being Abby and I, is that I come up with all my ideas, no matter how great or good or bad or average or whatever they are, is that they tend to just be really expensive. And this was probably the only idea I've ever come up with that I felt passionately about, that could be contained in one location. And I can't say for sure that made the film any cheaper, but what it did do was, I hope, and I guess this is for Abby to speak more about, is make it logistically easier. He says, knowing that he asked to use a real chicken shop and refused to budge on which chicken shop we'd be using. But and so that's where it came from. It really just came from knowing the importance of that place to me, knowing the importance of that place to many of my peers, and despite our various walks of life that we've all taken, wanting to understand what it might be like if those people were back in that exact same space that they've grown up in, that they still go to and have been going to for 20 years. And that shop is faithful and loyal in that it remains the same. The food prices stay relatively similar. What's on the menu stays the same, but the outside world is changing. And how do you, and just like the outside world is changing, so are these two people as individuals. And how do you reconcile that change? Where do you sit with it? What do you feel about that? And what happens when you're sat across the table with someone who either A, has changed, or B, hasn't changed? And what does that mean? How do you both look at the world and look at each other as a consequence?
Excellent. We're going to say something there, sorry, Abby, about the production side.
Was I going to say something?
Yeah, and chastise Abe for spending.
Oh no, Abe has extravagant ideas, but that's fun. Soon we'll be able to afford them, so that's fine.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, and you're right, with the chicken shop, it's great because obviously it was a real location, so you can, and the fact that you do see that, it's great because obviously, and especially in that, in London itself, in the inner cities of London, because you can see there's a lot of gentrification, there's a lot of areas are being boosted up, this, that, and the other. But people's lives are still the same. They still change, obviously, and it's great to see the two characters as when they were younger and as they've both grown up exactly the same, same backgrounds, same way of life. But one obviously chose one path and went on his way, and the other stayed sort of carried on and stayed where he was, being with what he wanted to do as well. And my words, I've really tongue-tied myself again. But it's great to see the both actually come together and do that, and as I say, in the short time that you've got it, the story is very, very powerful. And I love the switchbacks to when they were younger as well. Like, it gets to one moment, a pause or a bit of silence between them and then all of a sudden it goes back to their younger days. It shows them when they're like, oh, the world is their oyster, their dreams. This, because he's going to make it big. He's going to be this, that, and the other. And then it goes back to them they're a bit disjointed because obviously, you've got one wanting to move away and take away that central, that constant, like you say, that constant, that thing that always gone there, and then all of a sudden one of them's, that's it, he's off, like you say, with the and it's just it's good it's nice to see that story coming through, is what I'm trying to say, I guess. Because I'm really bad at saying it for some reason tonight. I'm just awful. That's okay. Putting it across, but yeah, it does come out really powerful, and the imagery around it as well. And like you say, that with the constant of that chicken shop in the background, it's just made me hungry actually, because I just love chicken. But you do watch it. Good things don't. Yes, certain things don't change, but people do as their lives get older and stuff. And I could see it myself, and where I know I've had friends and we've gone through things so much, and then we've taken different paths, and you just see it how it can, how it just different decisions made during your life can take two people who from the same sort of backgrounds and just woomph separate ways.
Yeah.
Excellent. So how did you find about casting as well? So I stunned you into silence with my really bad speaking habits.
That's okay.
How did you find
casting?
Do
you know what? It's not even that. It's the difficulty of Zoom when that talking over each other is futile. So it's this annoying level of communication which is totally unnatural. Humans don't just wait for each other to stop talking, but because of Zoom, we know we have to wait for each other to stop talking, or else we're going to be over speaking on each other. We'll mess up your recording and all of that. So no, nothing to do with stunning us into silence. It's more of just after 6-7 months of knowing how of doing Zoom, we now know the unspoken rules of how to do it. But to answer your question about casting, well, the first person who was casted was Paris Jordan, and he was casted in my bedroom or wherever it was that I wrote the first draft of the script. So I was writing it, and as I was writing it, I just knew that this was the person who 100% had to play that character. He was in a previous play of ours called The Cage, and he was just magnificent, and I've been so excited to work with him again. But with me, it's always finding the right part. Like, we've been really fortunate in terms of the relationships we've built with brilliant actors over the years. But for me, it's always important that casting the right person for the right reason, rather than picking them just because you have access to them or availability. And so I knew that straight away. At some point down the line, I thought, I should probably tell this guy that I'm planning to cast him. And I think I got on the phone with him. I was like, right, so I've got the script. I don't remember what stage we were at yet, but the script was there, and I was like, we're hoping to make this, and if we do, I want you to play the lead. And Paris was like, look, I don't even need to read the script. So whatever it is, I'll do it. I love your writing. I love your work. And so that was great to have that relationship and that bond with him. And with the remaining 3 actors, Abby went and sought out a casting director, Heather Baston, who was brilliant in presenting us with options. And for me, the most important thing was first to cast adult Isaac, because I wanted both of our adults cast first, so we knew what we were working with, to then cast the younger characters. We got really fortunate, I think, with resemblance, because certainly I made a decision going into the casting and watching the videos that I wasn't going to pick. My primary motivation wasn't going to be because they looked like who they were meant to be playing. That's kind of, in my opinion, pointless in something where you're gonna be giving relatively equal amounts of time on screen. So you need strong performers who can carry their own, and especially as a first-time director as well, you want to be able to, first-time director on a short film, you know, no matter how much money you have, you've still got the budget and the time against you, and so you know, you don't want to compromise on ability and performance, you know. But we got really lucky. The two people who we liked the most were, one, available, and two, had a resemblance to the people who they were playing, and so that was really amazing and fortunate. And we were really happy about that.
Yeah.
Excellent. And Ivano's, you know, is it Ivano? Ivano? I can't.
Yeah, Ivano, yeah.
He's brilliant. I mean, I've seen, I know him from quite a few things. So seeing him in it, I was like, yeah, he's a fantastic actor as well. I love it. I mean, in Paris, you say, Paris played that part perfectly. He really did. And it's just everyone, and then the kid, like you say, it seems to be nice. It's a perfect sort of combination of everything within there as well. And you know, all those. All of them, the four. We've got the two young, the two old. They're perfect. They actually did. They put their parts across really, really well. And like you said, the likeness. Nice to know it wasn't that intended to get them there, but then, you know, to see who they could grow up to be was, it's worked. And obviously, the writing behind that, then, that your writing is giving them the words to actually come out and the power. Because you can see, obviously, sometimes if the writing's not there, like you say, it's you know, you have that power. Because I've seen quite a lot of stuff where, sadly, I wouldn't knock any writers, but maybe it's just not been given the opportunity. The writers weren't given the opportunity, whatever, to write something decent, and they've got big names, but then it's just fallen apart for some reason. It's just not worked. But No More Wings, for anyone who will be watching it. He goes, it works. It does. So
thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. It's I say it's great, and I mean it's also Oscar qualifying, I believe, as well.
That is correct.
So again, I'm just mentioned, you know, you won that other prize. Now you're an Oscar qualifying film as well. He goes, how does that make you feel? I mean, that must be amazing. Obviously, you know.
Yeah, I think I've been constantly pinching myself for months. You know, I can't say it wasn't something we didn't want. We definitely did want it, but you know, when I think of, you know, nothing has gone to plan or expected in terms of our festival strategy or this year as a whole. And you know, when we, you know, because a lot of people often ask me, how did we decide which festivals we were going to submit to? And I always say to them, well, as someone who has never been to like major film festivals, who does not have the access, who isn't like a religious follower of film festivals, I couldn't tell you what festivals program what kind of films. And so the only thing we could do, knowing that we don't have an infinite bucket of money for submitting to festivals, was bring up the BAFTA and Academy qualifying list, and that was how we decided we'd submit it. And so you read through all the rules, and you know that for BAFTA you just have to be selected for certain festivals. With the Academy, you actually have to win an award at one of those festivals. So it's a much bigger festival list, but you have to win an award. That's the criteria. And so you kind of tell yourself, okay, cool. Well, that's a much higher bar to attain. But, you know, maybe like in our 10th or 20th or 30th festival, will, you know, win an award. You don't think that you're going to win it at your very first festival. And that very first festival which you get selected for is also Tribeca Film Festival. Yeah, all of these things you don't imagine will happen. And so I feel like 6-7 months down the line, it's only kind of started to feel real, where I'm like, okay, this is a real thing. Like, this film is going to be in consideration, and Academy members are going to have to watch it and decide how they score it and whether they think it's worthy or not. But even just to be in that conversation is magnificent and is an achievement in itself. Like, that was, yeah, like I said, as someone who does set the bar high for myself, the minimum ambition for this film would have been to qualify, and I'm so grateful that we have. Although, ironically, I remember around this time last year in December, when we had the screening for No More Wings for friends and family, and I remember saying at the screening and a Q&A that I did after, I was like, honestly, we had about 400 people there, and the reaction was just utterly incredible. And I said that, I remember saying at the time, that when people asked what the next steps of the journey was, I was like, well, we're going to submit it to these festivals. We have no idea what's going to happen. This is what could happen. This is, yeah. But more than anything, I don't think anything can replicate this moment, seeing the reactions and responses from the people who I feel the film is for, and the fact that they love it meant so much to me. And in that moment, I didn't need any more validation in that film yet. This is extra validation, which is incredible and has the ability to change our careers, which is already changing our careers without us even being there yet. But yeah, equally, I was elated a year ago when, and none of that mattered when those people just loved this film, because those are the people who'd be most critical of it, the people who know that world, who know those characters. Like, one of my close friends came to me, who I went to school with, came to me after the screening, and he said that he felt like a sense of protectiveness because he loved the film, but he was like, I don't know if these people are allowed to love the film. Like, there's lines in it that I get, but I know they can't get because they didn't go to school with us. So, like, and he was like, to hear that reaction from people who he knows didn't live the same experience as us, but they still were able to connect to the film anyway, was so special to him. And I think that's what actually carries on being special about this whole journey, is people connecting with it in whatever way they connect with it, whether it be on such an intricate level as someone who went to school with me, so knows those characters, or someone who lives on the other side of the world but finds a sense of connection of story to it. Because for me, that's what storytelling is all about, it being universal. So yeah, we're much deviated from your Oscar question, but yeah, that is an amazing feeling, and yeah, let's see how the journey goes.
Yeah,
excellent. And for yourself as well, Abby, obviously, because there's a lot of work from you as a producer, pushing that kind of stuff in there and getting those festivals out. So yeah, it is obviously, for you, it's a great feeling as well. I know you were nodding away there, but
yeah. I'm just super gratifying, of course. I mean, yeah, it's everything that we could have wanted, and maybe a sprinkle of a smidge more. Like Abe said, we kind of set the bar high with whatever we're doing, but yeah, it's amazing for that to actually come to fruition and to be living it. It would be nice if we could actually physically go to one of these festivals.
Especially if you get the early,
We could go to Raindance. Yeah, we could go to Raindance. Yeah, but yeah, hopefully a few more in the future.
Excellent, yeah. Be nice to see you on the red carpet in LA as well.
Amen to that, Chris.
Oh, yeah.
You said it, not us.
Yeah, I said it. You didn't jinx it. I've done it. No, yeah. But I think it can. I definitely think you can. It's definitely got that quality about it that brings it very much forward. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Okay. What else have you got in the pipeline? Because obviously, guys busy minds like yourselves, you're always on the next thing. And like you say, this was screened last year as well. So obviously, what else have you got going on at the moment that you may be able to talk about, or you may not want to talk about? Which will make it very short.
Like to go, Abe?
Oh, do you want me to go first?
Yeah, shoot.
Okay, cool. I'll go first. I've kept very busy this year. I've done a number of writers' rooms, which have been quite fun. So working on other people's shows. I've also, more recently, in terms of on the directing side, have been directing on a returning series, but I can't really say much about it. But I've been doing that, which it's been great. And actually, what's been incredible has been to be doing that on a TV show that I actually am a fan of. And I'll kind of leave it at that on there, but that's great. That's really, actually, I'm really pleased about that, because you hear so much that, you're told that in this industry, you're going to have to spend a lot of time, especially in your early days, doing the things that you're not interested in, but it will get you to the jobs that you want to be doing. And so, not that I expected that to be any different for me, but to see that this film has opened that door for me where I'm actually being positioned for things that I like is really, really great. So that's the side of things which aren't my work, but I'm working on them. In terms of my own work, I've got a couple of TV series in development, which is exciting. Can't say much about them other than I'm writing away, really enjoying just building those worlds. I'm currently being mentored by Jesse Armstrong, who created Succession, and I'm writing something under that mentorship, which is really exciting and fun. And it's great to have someone who is not only so experienced, but actually is able to mentor in a way that is useful to me, who is achieving things that I wouldn't say feel beyond me, but there's a gap that needs to be bridged. So, you know, in terms of he's writing on a hit US show as a Brit who lives in Britain, and what does that look like being a showrunner and a creator of a show of such magnitude for HBO, and learning from that process and learning from him and how that's done. So that's really great as well. And also developing a feature film as well, which Abby's producer on, and that's an idea which I had for a number of years as a short film, and kept saying to Abby, you know, I've got the short film, got the short film, got the short film. And what's been great actually about that is, as it's continued to like live in my head and develop a bit further, and at one point it was suggested to me that, oh, that short would make a really good feature. And yeah, it's got so much more power and strength as a story now than it did have years ago when I would have first told Abby about the idea. So yeah, I'm essentially just doing what every writer does, which is writing on things they can't talk about, and then and then everyone thinks that you're not actually doing your job anymore, and then in 3 years you announce that you've got something you can share with the world. So yeah, it's all very exciting and it's all amazing. And yeah, credit to No More Wings, because these are things that I wasn't doing a year ago, and it's as a result of No More Wings, as well as a couple of other things that have happened in the last 12 months, which have put me in a position to be doing these things.
Brilliant. Fantastic to hear. It really is. Obviously, even though we can't talk about them, but yeah, that's great. It's great to hear that you know, there's such exciting stuff going on for you there as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Abby, yourself?
Yeah, much of the same. Loads of things that are still like very early development stage. As Abe said, we're working on a feature that we're developing together, and working on a couple of shorts, one of which we'll shoot in January, which is really exciting. I'm developing a documentary as well. Yeah, so just lots of development. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think what's been really interesting actually is that, yeah, most people are, at least from Creative Blueballs, which is Abby and I, they're used to seeing something come out at least once a year. Since 2016, we've always given something each year, whether it be theatre or whether it be film. And I remember with No More Wings, everyone was asking what's next. And I was like, well, the reality of it is that if this film does everything we hope it's going to do, the what's next isn't going to be in 2020 like you hope, or probably not even 2021. Like, you know, it's probably going to be in 2-3 years from now, because once you're doing the work you want to do, because, you know, we're all in this wanting to make feature films and make TV series and whatnot. But the only downside, because there's many ups, but the only downside is that those things take a lot longer to make. You know, you need a lot more people, you need a lot more money, and even if they're in the process of happening and it's all like full steam ahead, it's not going to happen just like that, especially if you want to make great work that really connects with people, resonates and whatnot, and is shown through the right platform as well. It still takes time to develop that work. In fact, especially if it's being shown through the right platform. Like if you're working with the people who you want to be working with, you know, there's a reason why they make great shows and great films, because they take the time required to make it. They're not just churning out TV shows and films that took 5 minutes to make.
No, you're right. It does, you know, and it's because there's lots, like you say, it's victim, well, kind of a victim of your own success in a way, because you get pulled off, exactly, pulled off to all these other great projects as well. It's fantastic. I'm going to stop the recording now because I'm at the end of my questions first. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you both. It really has. Is there anything like final, quick parting words for anyone who's listening or watching?
I guess my final words for anyone listening is, if you can check out No More Wings, it's currently showing on the Raindance Film Festival's website and their platform, and it can be watched there for free. And I think it's showing for a little longer on the Aesthetica Short Film Festival's website as well. So it's currently programming at those festivals, and if by the time you hear this, they're gone off, then it should be another festival coming soon somewhere. So yeah.
I think Abe said it. If you haven't seen No More Wings, please go and see it. Like Abe said, if by the time you've watched this, it's not at Raindance or Aesthetica anymore, it will be definitely at another festival in the coming months.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess I should add, because if it's not there and you want to know how, then follow us on social media. You can find it there, whether it be my personals, which is Abe's Legend, whether it be the Creative Blue Balls social media, whether it be the No More Wings one. I'd probably say my one is probably the best because I'm quite active and we sometimes forget to post on the other ones. But either way, if you're all over the social medias, you'll see it. We regularly post when there's any news to share about the film.
Brilliant, and I'll post it.